Aladdin, Konya, May 1247. Being forced into a decision that I knew I would deeply regret later, I remained silent and did not openly object to this marriage. But on the day Kimia was going to be married to Shams, I woke up with a pain such as I had never felt before. I sat up in bed, gasping for breath, like a droning man, and then, annoyed with myself for wallowing in self pity, I slapped my face again and again. A strangled sigh escaped my lips, and it was that sound that made me realize I wasn't my father's son anymore. I had no mother, no father, no brother, and no Kimia. I was all alone in this world. What little remained of my respect for my father had disappeared overnight. Kimia was like a daughter to him. I thought he cared about her, but apparently the only person he really cared about was Shams. How could he marry him to a man like him? Anyone could see that Shams would make a terrible husband. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that just to make Shams safe, my father had sacrificed Kimia's happiness, and along with it mine. I spent the whole day struggling with these thoughts while having to watch the preparations. The house was spruced up, and the bedroom where the newlyweds would sleep was cleansed with rose water to ward off evil spirits. But they forget the bigger evil. How were they going to fend off Shams? By later afternoon, I couldn't stand it anymore, determined not to be part of a celebration that meant only torture for me. I headed for the door. Aladdin, wait, where are you going? My brother's voice came from behind me, loud and sharp. I'm going to stay at Ishad's house tonight, I said, without looking at him. Have you gone crazy? How can you not stay for a wedding? If our father's hurts, this will break his heart. I could feel rage rising from the pit of my stomach. How about the hearts our father is breaking? What are you talking about? Don't you get it? Our father arranged this marriage just to place Shams and make sure he doesn't run away again. He offered Kimia to him on a silver tray. My brother pursed his lips, looking hurt. I know what you are thinking, but you are wrong. You think this is a forced marriage, he said, whereas it was Kimia who wanted to marry Shams. As if she had a choice in a matter, I snapped. Oh God, don't you understand? My brother exclaimed, lifting both palms up as though asking help from God. She was in love with Shams. Don't say again. This is not true. My voice cracked like thawing ice. My brother, Sultan Walid said, please don't let your feelings veil your eyes. You are jealous, but not even jealousy can be used in a constructive way and serve a higher purpose. Even disbelief can be positive. It was one of the rules number 35. In this world, it is not similarities or regularities that take us a step forward, but blunt opposite. And all the opposites in the universe are present within each and every one of us. Therefore, the believer needs to meet the unbeliever residing within. And the non-believer should get to know the silent faithful in him until the day one reaches the state of insan-i-kamil, the perfect human being. Faith is a gradual process and one that necessitates its seeming opposite, disbelief. That was the last straw for me. Look here, I am sick all of this syrupy Sufi talk. Besides, why should I listen to you? It's your fault. You could have left Shams in Damascus. Why did you bring him back? If things get messy, and I'm sure they will, you are the one who is responsible. My brother nodded at the insides of his mouth with a look that verged on fearfulness. I realized in that instant that for the first time in our lives, he was frightened of me and the things I was capable of doing. It was a bizarre feeling, but strangely comforting. As I walked to Ishad's house, talking the side street, the reeked of foul smells so that nobody would see me cry. I could think of only one thing: Shams and Kimia sharing the bed. The thought of him taking her wedding dress off and touching her milky skin with his rough, ugly hand was revolting. My stomach was tied with knots. I knew that the line had been crossed. Somebody had to do something. Kimia, Konya, December 1247. Bride and groom. That is what we are supposed to be. It has been 7 months since we got married. All this time, he hasn't slept with me as my husband even once. Hard as I try to hide the truth from people, I can't help suspecting they know it. Sometimes I fear that my shame is visible on my face, like writing on my forehead. It is the first thing that anyone who looks at me notices. While I am talking to neighbors on the street, working in the orchards, or bartering with the vendors in the bazaar, it takes people, even in strangers, only a glance to see that I am a married woman, but still a virgin. Not that Shams even never comes to my room. He does. Each time he wants to visit me in the evening, he asks me beforehand if it is all right, and each time I give him the same answer. Of course it is, I say. You are my husband. Then all day long I wait for him with bated breath, hoping and praying that this time our marriage will be consummated. But when he finally knocks on my door, all he wants to do is sit and talk. He also enjoying reading together. We have read Laila Majnun, Farhad Shirin, Yusuf and Julekha, the Rose and the Nightingale, stories of lovers who have loved each other against all odds, despite the strength and determination of their main characters. Perhaps it is because deep inside I know that I will never taste love of such proportions. When not reading stories, Shams talk about the 40 rules of the itinerant mystics of Islam, the basic principle of the religion of love. Once he put his head on my lap, he was explaining a rule. He slowly closed his eyes, and as his voice trailed off into a whisper, he fell asleep. My finger combed through his long hair, and my lips kissed his forehead. It seemed an eternity before he opened his eyes, pulling me down toward himself. He kissed me softly. It was the most blissful moment we ever had together. But that was it. To this day, his body is unknown continent to me, as is my body to him. During these 7 months, I too have been to this room several times. But each time I visit him unannounced, my heart constricts with anxiety, as I can never tell how he will receive me. It is impossible to predict Sham's moods. Sometimes he is so warm and loving that I forgot all my sorrow. But then, at other times, he can be extremely grumpy. Once he slammed his door on my face, yelling that he wanted to be left alone. I have learned not to take any offense, just as I have learned not to bother him when he is in deep meditation. For months on end after the wedding, I pretended to be content, perhaps less with other than with myself. I forced myself to see Shams not as husband, but as almost everything else: a friend, a soulmate, a master, a companion, even a son. Depending on the day, depending on his mood, I thought of him as one of the other, dressing him up in different costume in my imagination. And for a while it worked. Without expecting much, I began to look forward to our conversation. It pleased me immensely that he appreciated my thoughts and encouraged me to think more widely. I learned so many things from him, and in time I realized I too could teach him a few things, such as the joys of a family life which he had never been tested before. To this day, I believe I can make him love as no one else could. But it wasn't enough. Whatever I did, I could not rid my mind of the thought that he didn't love me. I had no doubt that he liked me and meant me well, but this wasn't anything even close to love. So harrowing was this thought that it was eating me up inside, gnawing at my body and soul, and I became detached from the people around me, friends and neighbors alike. I now prefer to stay in my room and talk with dead people. Unlike the living, the dead never judged. Other than the dead, the only friend I had that was Desert Rose. United in our desire to stay away from eyes of others, we had become close friends. She is a Sufi now. She leads a solitary life, having left the brothel behind her. Once I told her I envied her courage and determined to start life anew. He shook her head and said, "But I have not started life anew. The only thing I did was to die before death." Today, I went to see Desert Rose for an entirely different reason. I had planned to maintain my composure and talk her calmly, but as soon as I entered, I started choking back sobs. "Kimia, are you alright?" she asked. "I'm not feeling well," I confessed. "I think I need your help." "Certainly," she said. "What can I do for you?" "It is about Shams. He doesn't come near me. I mean, not in that way." I shuddered halfway through but managed to finish my sentence. "I want to make myself attractive to him. I wanted to teach me how." Desert Rose exhaled, almost a sigh. "I took an oath, Kimia," she said, a weary note slipping into her voice. "I promised God to stay clean and pure, not even think anymore about the ways a woman could give pleasure to a man." "But you are not going to break your oath. You are just going to help me," I pleaded. "I am the one who needs to learn how to make Shams happy." "Shams is an enlightened man," Desert Rose says, lowering her voice a notch as if afraid of being heard. "I don't think this is the right way to approach him." "But he was a man, isn't he?" I reasoned. "Aren't all men the son of Adam and bound by the flesh? Enlightened or not, we all have been given a body. Even Shams has a body, doesn't he?" "Yes, but..." Desert Rose grabbed her tasbih and started to finger the beads on one at a time, her head tilted in contemplation. "Oh, please," I begged. "You are the only one I can confide in. It has been several months now. Every morning I wake up with the same heaviness in my chest. Every night I go to sleep in tears. It can't go on like this. I need to seduce my husband." Desert Rose said nothing. I took off my scarf, grabbing her head and forced her to look at me. I said, "Tell me the truth. Am I so ugly?" "Of course not, Kimia. You are the beautiful young woman." "Then help me. Teach me the way to a man's heart." I insisted. "The way to a man's heart can sometimes take a woman far away from himself." "My dear," Desert Rose said ominously. "I don't care," I said. "I am ready to go as far as it takes." Desert Rose, Konya, December 1247. Bursting into tears, she kept begging me to help, her face swollen, her chest heaving harder and faster, until I finally told her I would lend a hand. Even as I confronted her, deep inside I knew it was hopeless. I knew I should never have yielded to her demands. Still, I wonder, how could I not have seen this tragedy coming? Torn with guilt, I kept asking myself again and again, how could I have been so naive and not seen that things would take such a terrible turn? But the day she came to me crying for help, there was no way I could turn her down. "Teach me, please," she begged me, her hands demurely folded in her lap, like a good girl she was raised to be. Hers was a voice that no longer had a reason to hope, yet was hopeful all the same. What harm could there be in this? I thought as my heart lurched in compassion. It was her husband she wanted to seduce for God's sake, not a stranger. She had only one motive: love. How could this lead to anything incorrect? Her passion might be too strong, but it was halal, wasn't it? A halal passion. Something inside me sensed a trap, but since it was God who set it, I saw no harm in walking right in. This is how I decided to help Kimia, this village girl whose only notion of beauty was applying henna to her hands. I taught her how to make herself more attractive and good looking. She was an avid student, eager to learn. I showed her how to take long perfume baths, soften her skin with scented oil and ointments, and apply mask of milk and honey. I gave her amber beads to braid in her hair so that her beauty would never a sweet, lasting smell. Lavender, chamomile, rosemary, thyme, lily, marjoram, and olive oil. I told her how to apply each and which incenses to burn at night. Then I showed her how to whiten her teeth, paint her nails and toes with henna, applying kohl on her eyes and eyebrow, redden her lips and cheeks, how to make her hair look lush and silky, and how breast bigger and rounder. Together we went to a store in the bazaar I knew too well from the past. There we bought her silk robes and silk undergarments, the likes of which she had never seen or touched before. Then I taught her how to dance in front of a man, how to use his body God had given her. After 2 weeks of preparation, she was ready. That afternoon I prepared Kimia for Shams the way a shepherd prepares a sacrificial lamb. First, she took a warm bath, scrubbing her skin with soapy clothes and anointing her hair with oils. Then I helped her to get dressed in clothes that a woman could wear only for her husband, and even for him only once or twice in a lifetime. I had chosen a cherry-colored sheath and a pink robe gilded with hyacinths of the sort that would reveal the shape of her breast. Lastly, we applied lots and lots of paint on her face, with a string of pearls across her forehead added as a final touch. She looked so pretty that I couldn't take my eyes off her. When we were done, Kimia didn't look like an inexperienced, timid girl anymore, but a woman burning with love and passion. A woman ready to make a bold move for the man she loved and, if necessary, to pay a price. As I stood inspecting her, I remembered the verse of Joseph and Zuleika in the Holy Quran. Just like Kimia, Zuleika too had been consumed by a desire for a man who did not respond to her overtures. When the ladies in the city had maliciously gossiped about her, Zuleika had invited them all to a banquet. She gave each of them a knife and she said to Joseph, "Come out before them." When they saw him, they did extol him, and in their amazement cut their hands. They said, "God preserve us. No mortal is this. This is none other than a noble angel." Who could blame Zuleika for desiring Joseph so much? "How do I look?" Kimia asked anxiously before she put on veil, ready to step out the door and onto the street. "You look exquisite," I said. "Your husband will not only make love tonight, he will come back tomorrow asking more." Kimia blushed so hard her cheeks turned rosy red. I laughed, and after a brief pause, she joined me, her laughter warming me like sunshine. I mean, what I would say as I felt confident that she would be able to attract Shams, the way a flower rich with nectar attracts a bee. And yet, when our eyes met just before she opened the door, I saw that a trace of doubt had crept into her gaze. Suddenly, I had a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach, almost a premonition that something terrible was going to happen. But I didn't stop her. I should have known better. I should have seen it coming. For as long as I live, I will never forgive myself. Kimia, Konya, December 1247. Bold, boisterous, and intelligent, Shams of the Bridge knows a great deal about love. But there is one thing he doesn't know anything about: the pain of unrequited love. The evening dessert rose dressed me. I was full of excitement and an audacity I didn't know I had in me. The soft rustle of silk dress against my body, the scent of my perfume, the taste of rose petal on my tongue, it all made me feel awkward, but also unusually brave. Back at home, I caught my reflection on a pane of glass. My body was neither round, rotund, nor milky, and my bosom not as perfect as I would have liked, but I still thought I looked pretty. I waited until I was sure everyone in the house had gone to sleep. Then I wrapped myself in a long, thick shawl and tiptoed to Sham's room. "Kimia, I wasn't expecting you," she said as soon as he opened his door. "I had to see you," I said, and stepped inside without waiting for him to invite me in. "Could you please close the door?" Shams looked puzzled, but he did as told. When we were alone in the room, it took me a few seconds to master my courage. I turned my back to him, took a deep breath, and then, in a quick move, removed my shawl and slid my robe off. Almost instantly, I felt the weight of my husband's surprising eye on my back. From my neck down to my feet, wherever his gaze touched felt warm. But that warmth, whether it was real or imagined in my excitement, was quickly replaced by the coldness of the silence that descended upon the room, my chest rising and falling with apprehension. I stood in front of Shams as naked and inviting as the houris in paradise are said to be. In the pregnant silence, we stood listening to the wind outside, howling, ringing, and wailing through the city. "What do you think you are doing?" he asked coldly. It was quite an effort to find my voice, but I managed to say, "I want you." Shams of the bridge walked a half circle around me and stood right in front of me, forcing me to look him in the eye. My knee buckled beneath me, but I didn't budge. Instead, I took a step toward him and pressed my body against him, squirming ever so slightly, offering him my warmth the way desert rose had taught me. I kissed his chest and whispered soft words of love. I drank in his fragrance as I moved my fingers up and down his muscular back. As if he had touched a burning stove, Shams jerked away. "You think you want me? You think you do? But all you want to do indulge your vanity." I put my arms around his neck and kissed him ever so hard. I pushed my tongue into his mouth and began flickering it back and forth. As I remembered what Desert Rose had told me, men love to suck their wives' tongue. Kimia, they all do. His lips tasted like blackberries, sweet and sour. But just as quickly as I thought a swirl of pleasure pulled us together, Shams stopped me and pushed me away. "I am disappointed in you, Kimia," Shams said. "Now could you please leave me?" As harsh as his words sounded, not a trace of feeling gazed his face, no anger, not even the slightest irritation, and I couldn't tell which hurt me the most, this sharpness of his words or the blackness of his face. I had never felt so humiliated in my life. I bent down to take my robe, but my hands were trembling so hard I couldn't hold the slippery, delicate fabric. Instead, I grabbed my shawl and wrapped it around myself, sobbing, gasping, and still half-naked. I ran out of the room, away from the room, away from him, away from this love that I now understood existed only in my imagination. I never saw Shams again. After that day, I never left my room. I spent all my time lying on my bed, lacking not to so much the energy as the will to go out. A week passed, then another, and then I stopped counting the days. All strength was drained from my body, ebbing away bit by bit. Only my palms felt alive. They remembered the feel of Sham's hand and the warmth of his skin. I never knew that death had a smell, a strong odor like pickled ginger and broken pine needles, pungent and bitter, but not necessarily bad. I came to know it only when it started to waft around my room, enveloping me like thick, wet fog. I started running a high fever, slipping into delirium. People came to see me, neighbors and friends. Kira waited by one side of my bed, her eyes swollen, her face ashen. Giver stood on the other side, smiling her soft, dimpled smile. "God the man, the heretic," said Sophia. "This poor girl has fallen sick of heartbreak, all because of him." I tried to force a sound, but it didn't make it past my throat. "How can you say such things? Is he God?" Kara said, trying to help. How can you attribute such powers to a mortal man? But they didn't listen to Kara, and I was in no state to convince anyone of anything. In any case, I soon realized that whatever I said or didn't say, the outcome would be much the same. The people don't like Shams had found another reason in my illness to hate him. Worse, I could not dislike him even if I wanted to. Before long, I drifted into a state of nothingness, where all colors melted into white and all sounds dissolved into a perpetual drone. I could not distinguish people's face anymore, and could not hear spoken words beyond a distant hum in the background. I don't know if Shams of the Bridge ever came to see my room to see me. Perhaps he never did. Perhaps he wanted to see me, but the women in the room would not let him in. Or perhaps he did come after all, and sat by my bed, played me the knee for hours, held my hand, and prayed for my soul. I would like to believe that. Nonetheless, one way or the other, it didn't matter anymore. I was neither angry nor cross with him. How could I be when I was flowing in a stream of your pure awareness? There was so much kindness and compassion in God, and an explanation for everything, a perfect system of love behind it all. 10 days after I visited Sham's room, clad in silk and perfumed tulle, 10 days after I fell ill, I plunged into a river of pure non existence. There I swam to my heart's content, finally sensing that this must be what the deepest reading of Quran feels like, a drop of infinity. And it was flowing waters that carried me from life to death.